Hello guys, this is Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com and this channel, and today we're going to be talking about manually core aerating a lawn. To be more specific, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it and give you some pointers along the way. This green patch that you see here is a patch of area in my grass. This is the end of winter, it's late February. I core aerated this lawn, or this section, manually with this about two and a half weeks ago. You can see how it's doing much better than the rest of the lawn, which has yet to wake up from the winter. These days there's a number of ways that you can get your lawn aerated. Obviously you can hire a local company to come out and core aerate your lawn for you. You can go off to a local tool rental place and rent a large piece of machinery and do it yourself. There are liquid products out there. In fact, I have a video about liquid aeration products. You can put liquid aeration products down. It's a little bit different than cores. I think they're complementary myself, but in my opinion, I love hand tools. I love manual labor out in the lawn. I think it's important, and I think it's good exercise. It's a lot better than just like biking in place or running around the block for no particular reason other than exercise. You can literally get something important done and get your exercise in at the same time when you use one of these. Let's talk about how to do it, because obviously it makes a big difference in the lawn. All right, in the next minute or two, I'm going to literally show you me doing this. But before I get into that, I really do want to talk about why we do this, what it does, why it works, why this is important. There's a good chance that you already understand all of these points, so bear with me as I get through this for the people who are new to the topic. Core aerating is essentially a way of getting oxygen into the ground. Now, deep down under the ground, some people think of it as, why would there be oxygen down there? Well, there needs to be oxygen down there on a molecular level, like small amounts of it for microbes that live in the ground. Now, as the soil temperature comes up into the kind of the 50, 55, 60 degree range, certainly as you get above 45 degrees, microbial life starts getting particularly active and they need oxygen. So if you are familiar to any extent with compost piles, there are anaerobic compost piles. Those are the piles where you just put a bunch of stuff on it and you never turn it and you wait a couple years. Those are the piles that are anaerobic. There are different kind of microbial life in there breaking things down much slowly. Much slower than the aerobic piles where you're turning it. When you turn it, you're basically introducing oxygen into the mix, and of course you kind of keep things moist, and the moisture and the oxygen work together and they feed the microbes and they break things down much faster. In the lawn, it's the same thing. There's microbial life in the lawn. Every time you mow the grass, the clippings go down onto the lawn. They need to break down. That is accomplished by the microbial life. You need that microbial life to have a healthy lawn. If you're never poking holes into the lawn, then you have an anaerobic situation, which means the microbes are working in a different sort of a way, a slower way. And there are different microbes at work. If you are poking holes into the lawn, then you are making an aerobic situation where lots of oxygen, there's oxygen exchange that goes down into the ground and comes back up. Whenever you water the lawn, you're able to get water deep into the soil surface or deep below the soil surface so that microbial life deep down can get the oxygen and the moisture that they need. If you're watering the lawn, it's easier to water deeply simply because there are holes, channels going down into the ground. Now, liquid aeration products are going to kind of feed that microbial life and help boost its vigorousness, but it's never going to actually provide those channels for literal like tunnels of air and moisture to go down into the ground. And that's why we core aerate. When we core aerate, late in the winter, things warm up faster because the warm air can go down into the soil surface and start warming up the soil deeper as well as just from the surface down. It can warm it from deep coming up at the same time. When we water, we don't have to water an excessive amount to get the water to go deep, because it'll go down through those channels and it will pool in those channels, seeping laterally under the soil surface. Most core aerators, when it comes to these manual things, are about 3 inches deep. This is my yard butler. These cores are 3 inches deep and 1/2 inch wide. Now, as you pull cores with this machine, what you're going to see is you're going to see these little like soil tubes coming up. They kind of look like poop on the ground. Once you pull one, they come up out of the little hole and they flop onto the ground, and they're going to sit there. Basically, you are removing soil from your lawn and sticking it on top. You are minimizing the mass, the soil mass. So not only are you providing channels for air exchange to go down and up, and not only are you making it easier for nutrients to get down into the lawn, but you are depositing soil on the surface. So you are decreasing the mass of your topsoil. Now, eventually, those little like turds that sit on the top of the ground, those little soil tubes, are going to break down and reassimilate into the lawn and eventually start feeding the lawn again. But you can also rake those things off if you don't like them. And what I plan on doing in my area, and which I did here, is I top dress the whole area with other sorts of organic matter, things that are hard to incorporate into the soil when you're putting it on top of grass. But it is thoroughly going to add to the organic matter of your topsoil and feed the lawn throughout the entire year. Over here, I top dressed with worm castings about 2 weeks ago, after I did the core aeration. Over here, I'm going to show you how to actually core aerate. Now, with core aeration, the way that I like to do it manually is I like to do small sections at a time. So over here, this is a 50 square foot section that I did about, like I said, about 2.5 weeks ago. Today, I'm going to demonstrate for you an even smaller section. So from here to here is 3 feet, and I'm going to take it all the way over to here, which is 10 feet. So combined, I got 30 square feet of land space that I'm going to core aerate. Core aeration by manual means, it takes a long time. It just does. It takes a long time and it takes a lot of effort. The soil needs to be a little bit moist so that you can get this down in easily. It cannot be dry. Otherwise, it's going to be rock hard and crazy hard. Here comes my son running through. Just come on. There he goes. It also can't be like crazy wet either, because if it's crazy wet, you're just going to be poking holes and clogging these cores up. Now, this is the yard butler. The yard butler has it pulls 2 cores at a time. They're 1/2 inch cores, 3 inches deep. Now, there are a variety of manufacturers of these things. Some of them you can get like 4 at a time. What I have found is that 2 at a time works for me. Now, obviously, I'm not a gigantic man. I'm a regular guy, kind of on the small side. 160 pounds, this works just great. It goes right in and it pulls right up. Now, if I had 4, it would take more weight and a little bit more energy for me to push this thing down into the ground. Now, I don't want to use a 4-hole core puller because I'm not that gigantic of a guy. The more cores you are trying to do at one time, it's just more energy. Now, ideally, for every square foot that you're manually core aerating, you're going to be doing about 20 to 40. Now, there's a whole like Iowa State University study out there saying that ideally you'd be doing 20 to 40 cores per square foot. So in my mind, I've just taken that. There you go. Come on through, dude. In my mind, I've taken that to mean somewhere in there is great. 20, it's probably fine. I'm going to go a little bit above that. So in my mind, I think 24 cores every square foot. So if you're doing 24 cores per square foot for 30 square foot, I need to have 720 cores pulled out of the ground. Now doing 2 at a time, that means I need to plunge this thing into the ground 320 times. So imagine, this is only 30 square foot, and I need to do it 320 times. How much time does that take? How much time is that going to take to do an entire lawn? So I'm going to demonstrate for you how fast it takes just to do an area of this size. Now, before I get going, I'll let you do the math yourself, but I'll tell you the math right now. 30 square feet, if I'm going to do 720 cores, then virtually every core is going to be about 2 inches apart from the last one. Now, my yard butler, this is a 7.5 inch spread, which means I'm going to pull cores like this, and then I'm going to move about 2 inches off. I'm going to do them there. And I'm going to move about 2 inches off and do them there. And that's going to make a line. So what I'm going to end up doing is doing a line down like this, and then a line back, and then a line like this. I'm going to have, because this is 3 feet wide, 36 inches, if they're about 2¼ inches apart, I'm going to end up having about 12, 13 lines going all the way across. So I'm going to shoot for 13 lines, and I'll probably get 12, honestly. So let's get to it.
Oh, that's getting messy.
Yeah. I'm going to take a break here to breathe and to talk to you. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines so far. I wanted to get to 13. These cores ideally are 3 inches deep. So some of them are a little bit smaller. So no matter what you've got on the surface, it's going to compact down, or I should say they should be 3.5 inches deep. So this right here should be about 3.5 inches. Now, depending on how much you have sitting above the soil, like that, the core itself ends up being a lot smaller than 3.5. Now, that's a short one. That one's probably only 1.5 inches, but this is a long one. That one's probably about 3 inches. So on average, they're about 2.5 inches. So basically, we're pulling material out of the ground. Now, towards the end of this video, I'll give you the way to calculate how much material you're pulling out of the ground, because I'm going to rake this stuff off and replace it with some organic material that is going to be beneficial for the lawn in the long run. This stuff I'm going to rake up and keep it and use it as fill dirt later on, anytime I have the need to use fill dirt. All right, I literally didn't even count that, but the last row I kind of counted. It was about 26 punches across, which means I was getting about 50 punches over the course of something up around 12 rows. So 50 holes times 12, 600. I think I did more holes than I needed to, which is great because it still falls in line of that 20 to 40 holes per square foot. So here you see what it looks like from an aerial. If I get my legs out of the way, we move in close. So as you can see, the holes are really close together, and that is by design. That is how to do it. Now, you could leave all these little things on the ground. I'm going to take them off the ground because right now soil life is not quite alive enough to break them down quickly, and the grass isn't growing enough for me to take the lawnmower over them enough to break them down. So I'm going to sweep them off and give it about a week and a half, and then I'm going to backfill this. I'm going to top dress it with a mixture of organic material to fill in those holes.
Dad, you're making a caterpillar.
A caterpillar pile? Okay. Yeah, let's put them all in that silver bucket. There you go. I'm going to put it into a box.
Daddy,
What you guys doing?
we're putting all of that in a fill bag and fill bucket.
You're putting it all in the bag?
Yeah.
Nice. I like having helpers. You guys are doing great.
Let's just pour the whole bucket in there.
All right. All right.
Oh!
Nice. All right, see if you guys can find any more caterpillars. If you find any more caterpillars, stick it in the bucket or in the bag.
Wait, you can find the caterpillar. That one that was stuck in there.
Good job. See if you can get any more.
Finding stuff. Oh, there's some over here.
Oh, pick them up.
And right here.
All right, well, my kids pick up the rest of the caterpillars off the ground. I figured I'd let you know. Obviously, this allows the air to go down into the ground. A little bit later, as spring happens, the spring really gets going and the spring flush happens. As we put down pre-emergence, it's going to be easier to get product down into the ground. As we put down fertilizer, it's going to be better to, it's going to be easier to get fertilizer down into the ground. Basically, these holes are going to allow anything that needs to get down to the root zone to be easier to get down to the root zone. As daylight hours increase, right now it's February 22nd. It is a particularly warm day. I'm sitting here in a t-shirt. Dude over here is in his shorts. In a couple days, it's going to be like freezing again. It's going to be like winter all over again. But even still, having these little channels going down into the ground, as the sunlight hours get bigger, it helps with the chlorophyll production, helps with the spring green up before spring even happens. And then on those warm days, it helps with warming up the soil because the warm air can go down into these channels that we have just made. Doing this all by itself without doing anything else is going to help with your lawn becoming a little bit more green, a little bit more spring-like, a little bit earlier than just about everyone else, a little bit earlier than the average lawn. So I just did 30 square foot and that took that amount of time. I didn't time it. I'll time it here in a few minutes. But if you scale that up, 30 square foot times 10 is 300 square foot times 3 plus a little bit is about 1,000. So that's about how much time it takes to do 1,000 square feet of lawn space. Now, here in my flat lawn here, I've got about 2,500 square foot. So it would obviously take a long time to go through all 2,500 square foot. And 2,500 square foot is kind of small. Lots of lawns are a lot larger than that. So at some point, the time commitment to do an entire lawn space is just too much. And you're going to have to go the mechanical route, which is much faster. Obviously, renting a mechanical aerator is going to cost a lot of money and it's going to take... and it's going to be a little bit harder. You got to transport the thing back and forth from the rental agency and learn how to use the machine, but you're going to be able to get through a lot of land space in a single day. So there's going to be some give and takes. I do like manual labor. I like manual tools. If I can make it happen, if I can justify the time commitment to do it, I will almost always choose a manual tool. This didn't take that much time. Most of the grass isn't really growing late in the month of February and throughout March. So the way I did it in 2020 was I manually core aerated a good section of my lawn. Today, I've done a little bit. I'm gonna continue doing this throughout the course of my entire yard over the next few weeks. And I think I can get through 2,500 square foot pretty easily before the regular spring growing season happens. I've got other videos here on core aeration. I'm gonna link to all of them down below. There's not like a ton of them, there's a few of them. But I wanna show you a side-by-side. Here's a side-by-side of this year. I have a side-by-side video from last year. I've also got a comparison about core aeration and liquid aeration products, both of which I use, both of which I recommend. They complement each other. It's not an either or, it's a both situation for me. And then I've also got a video about the timing of when you do these things. Right now I'm doing it at the end of winter before spring starts. There is a better window of time to do this, and that's in the early fall. However, in the early spring is the second best time to do it, and I prefer doing it this time because it also helps me alleviate my thatch problem. So if you have thatch in your lawn, physically removing this material, you're actually physically removing some thatch layer as well. So that's going to help. Now later, I'm going to be putting down some liquid thatch removal products, some humic acid, things to improve the biological activity of the soil. That's going to eat away more at that thatch layer and continually improve my soil structure. Lots of this is going into other topics, better for other videos. So I hope that you will subscribe to the channel, maybe take a look at some of these other videos on these topics, things that I produced in the past and things that I'm going to produce here in the future. Thank you very much for watching this. If you've got any questions about manual aeration, go ahead and leave them here in the comments. Hopefully I put these, as I'm doing this on the fly, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so I'm going to calculate them here and throw them on the screens. Hopefully I threw them on the screen. Roughly your time commitment to manually corate 100 square foot and 1,000 square foot. And then you can do the math beyond that, depending on how large your lawn is. Hit up the description. There'll be some relevant links down there. And the Yard Butler, the one that I use here in the house, I'll put a link to where you can price that out. There's certainly other options out there as well. If you're a large guy, maybe go for the four cores at a time thing. For me, I'm too small. 2 is fine for me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video down the road.